Welcome to the Giant Shoulders Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Augustine. This podcast is about two things. First, celebrating those who have gone before us, paved the way for success in life and in business. And second, about those who are well on their way to paving the way for the next generation to have success in both life and business. No matter where we are in life, we are truly standing on the shoulders of giants. So join me as I sit down with guests from many walks of life, many professions, and hear who their giants are in their life and what kind of legacy they want to leave for others. Thanks for being here, and I hope you enjoy the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Giant Shoulders Podcast. We have another great episode here for you today. I have my friend Seth here with us, all the way from Iowa. So Seth, thanks for stopping by today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This is great. And, catching up before, it's always fun to talk with people that have other Iowa connections, other Big Ten connections, even if they're the wrong colors. So I'm really jacked to be on here, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking a little bit before. My family went to Iowa. Seth is an Iowa alum as well. I had my Michigan State mug, but I figured I'd better put that one away.
We wanted this conversation to go well.
Right. Exactly. So, well, thanks so much for being here, Seth. It's an honor to have you on. I guess let's just start with kind of a brief intro of you, like the 10,000 foot view. What do you want people to know about you and kind of that 10,000 foot view?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first things first, thanks for having me on. Like I said, really love the idea of your podcast and, super excited to be on here and be part of it. Basic overview of me, as we touched on before, I'm an Iowan born and raised. I've lived here my whole life outside of a year of college when I was down in Missouri. Kind of one of those people, just like a lot of folks that went through college, was getting my degree, didn't really know what I wanted to do. So it's just the general liberal arts degree, and then fell into a sales role, essentially out of, hey, I think I could be good at this. I'm outgoing, I'm competitive, like all the stereotypes people put around salespeople. But for me, luckily it was a fit, and I found a company right out of school that was willing to take a risk on me and, sink some resources in me to mold me into a relatively decent sales professional. So I've been doing that for the last six years. Started my career actually in financial services, a little different than your financial services. It was equipment leasing, actually. So did that for about the last 5.5 years. And then recently this summer made a transition to one of the companies that's just like a lot of the folks I was calling on. So now I work for an IT equipment provider and IT value-added reseller. So I now call on internet service providers, on large organizations, and sell network hardware and other services that surround that. So that's been an extremely exciting and challenging transition, but it's helped me develop a ton as well. So on a personal note, I have a wife and an 18-month-old, 19-month-old now son. And, we spend lots of time together. I'm a meathead at heart and obviously a Hawkeye here too. So I can't get it out of me.
I love it, man. Love it. It's funny you said 19-month-old son. I feel like every time, so I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 11-month-old now. She'll be 11 months in a couple days. Daughter as well, and I feel like every time somebody asks me, I have to up the month that I'm telling somebody, and it's just time just goes so quick with the little ones at home.
No, absolutely. It's one of those things that's funny because I've said this multiple times now. Obviously I'm 19 months into this fathering thing now. You're even further along than me, but all those cliches people tell you about having kids, like, oh, the time goes so fast, but it's so slow. Yes. You never get any sleep, blah, blah, blah. And you're kind of like, whatever. And now you're just like, they're all true.
They are.
They're for a reason.
Yep. Everybody tells you, and you're just like, okay, great. Like, I remember we were getting clothes for our daughter, and it's like, yeah, like we didn't put our daughter in these, like she grew too fast. And we're just like, well, we're not going to be those parents. We're going to put her in everything. And here we are giving clothes away. And like, Yeah, she
Oh my
didn't wear
God.
this. She only wore this once, and it's just.
Oh
It's
yeah.
scary.
Yeah. No, I feel you there. We're in that right now.
Oh man, cool. It's a fun time though. And I will say, not that you don't, not that you're short on advice being a young parent, but the the minutes and the hours go very slow, but the days and the weeks and the years go fast.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that has proved itself to be true and very helpful in trying times with the young ones at home. So I'll just share that. I
Yeah.
absolutely love our girls.
Absolutely,
And
man.
yeah, it's a fun time.
Yeah.
So
I hear you there.
awesome, man. Well, appreciate that intro. And had you on because you're an interesting guy. Sounds like that that's proving itself to be true so far. So I guess, the point of this podcast, right, is really to get a good feel for who are the giants in your life that you're standing on the shoulders of. And so whether it's right now that you're feeling like you're being mentored or led by somebody, or it's been in the past, I guess, who are the couple people in your life that you feel like stand out when you think, man, my success or my achievement in this area or where I am today would not have been possible to the degree that, has been achieved without this person in my life? Who are the couple people in your life?
Yeah, I putting some thought towards this just before hopping on here. I really boiled it down to three people. So two of them, one was my leader in the first job I had out of college. His name's Nielsen, and he, just a total rock star. He's probably, I don't know, 10, 12 years older than me, but it's funny because I just, I think he probably saw in me himself 10 or 12 years earlier, but, he put a lot of time and energy into really developing me. Number one, as just a professional in general and having some polish there, but as a sales professional too. And, I feel like my time working under him, which was the first 4.5 years of my career, really 4 years of my career, I guess, he did a really good job of leading me in a way that, allowed me to make my own mistakes and helped me learn from them. And at the same time, celebrating the wins, right? And being able to take a step back and see the big picture. I mean, I know from a sales perspective, right, there's always this battle of, the folks they're winging it, it's natural, it's blah, blah, blah. And there's the folks that are very process driven and operationally focused and just like every single day, very diligent. And I feel like he did an awesome job of helping me lay the groundwork to kind of find that middle ground, because I have some natural tendencies of both. And I think that's for any sales professional and really any professional in general. You've got to find your voice. You've got to find your rhythm. You've got to find the things that work for you. And, as much as a lot of companies take every single sales professional or young professional and chuck them into this cookie cutter training program and say, we need you to meet this KPI and this KPI and doing this and this and this, and they give all the same ones to the same people. That was not the approach they took with me at all. And, I'm very grateful for that. Funny story about Nick. So I said I'm a meathead. I competed in powerlifting. I haven't for a couple years now, but he's the same way, a strength athlete, strength nut as well, played college football. And so we've got a similar build. He's probably 6 inches taller than me. But one of our first trips together, we went out to Seattle, and funniest thing ever, which we joked about it. We still joke about it today when we talk. We sat down at like a Chili's or something in the Dallas airport, like at 8:00 at night in between flights. And the waitress goes like, can't remember the exact comment she made, but it was something along the lines of like, oh yeah, do you know what your dad wants? And I never let him hear the end of that.
Oh no! Oh no!
It was just one of those really. And I will say, and I still have a baby face, but I had like a real extreme baby face. My career started, so yeah, we got a kick out of that. But
oh man, is that good? Yeah, it's hard to live that one down.
Yeah,
And you can't let him live it down, I don't think.
Oh, absolutely not. No, that was, my jokes for like the first 3 years I worked there were all about how old he was, and I could see gray hairs coming in. He's like mid 30s, so he's like still in his prime right at that time. And
funny.
Yeah, man, no, he's just a great guy. Like, even since I've left that organization, Great America, like, we're still good friends, keep in touch, texting, doing the Snapchat thing, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I took a ton from him, man. Like, he's just a rock star.
That's so cool, man. And I think that is one of the things, especially in sales. I think that is so difficult as a leader, because it can be so easy to go, okay, this is how I succeeded in your role. And I was a super process oriented person who just every single day I made X amount of dials, and I was just like processing people and businesses and numbers and just like a robot.
Yep.
But then you get people who come in and they thrive a little bit differently. How do you, how do you raise somebody up that way and ebb and flow and be able to get the best out of your people? That's a skill that not a lot of people have. Not a lot of people have. Then that's a great leader. That's a really great leader.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something he did really well too, is he did not try to like push his processes and his ways and everything else on me. It was very much like, number one, obviously at the beginning, trying to find out what my strengths were and figuring out what they were, and then helping me maximize them, right? Giving me that environment. And the thing he did too, like that I really, really appreciated as a leader, or bad, he had my back, and he said, he messed up so bad that something can't be. He took extreme accountability for me, and that gave me so much more range to develop and explore what worked, what didn't, what type of business I should be going for. And he's a phenomenal leader, and a really great friend, and definitely really grateful to have had the chance to work with him.
That's cool. So that quote was, "You can't mess up so bad that it can't be fixed."
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of the safety net, right? He said, because when you're a young professional, you don't know, like, if I press this button or if I say this, is the building going to fall down? Do I get fired? And it was very, it was just a level of trust and, kind of the environment where he did say, he told me, he's like, I'm, never going to let you, he's like, I'm gonna let you make mistakes, but I'm never going to let you mess up so bad that it's something that can't be fixed. And that was, very, very much appreciated. And I just think that type of environment, right, taking off the pressure, especially from a young professional, right, in their first role, that's huge as people develop, having the ability to fail and have things still be okay, right? Yeah. That's a really big deal.
Yeah. It's almost like you need enough freedom to be able to thrive and find your own way, but then you need some boundaries as well, some framework, and the ability to kind of go back and forth and find a good balance there is invaluable. Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually like a really great transition to the next guy on my list, which is another gentleman that I worked with at the first organization I was with. His name was Kyle Steele. Check him out, hashtag 1minutewednesday on LinkedIn. And he's really, really great friend. I worked on the same team as him at Great America, and actually my last 2 years there, sat right beside him. And he had been in the organization for 10 years when I started, so he was very well versed just in how the organization works. He'd worked different functions, and by the time I had got there, he was in a sales role, and was very good at it, very good at his job, high achiever. And yeah, he totally took me under his wing, right? You've kind of got these, obviously you've got formal leadership, right? Which is like Nick I just referenced. And then you've got peers and kind of other mentorship type things. And he totally took it upon himself, very similar to Nick, in saying, hey, Seth, I want to see you succeed. No, you can always pull me from what I'm doing to help you. And proactively also telling me and showing me things to help me as a sales professional. That's cool. And a big thing from him, which I still take it from him all the time, is having this fearlessness to be authentic. Authenticity is a buzzword now that I feel like is so overused, and people
people try to be authentic. If you have to quote unquote try to be authentic, you are not being authentic.
Right.
Like it's kind of the irony there. And he, number one, he modeled that. Well, he lived it. He showed me by example every single day. And he instilled in me the confidence to do it too, right? To show me that, hey, Seth, the quirks, the things that make you weird, like the things that make you interesting, like those are what's going to help you win. Having some personality, not picking up the phone and being a robot and like having your tie as tight as it can go and everything, like that's what's relatable to people, right? People enjoy other folks that, don't make them feel all like their tie is all scrunched up and they have to act like a robot and everything else. And that's a guy that just brought so much charisma to the floor every single day. And that's contagious, right? And that totally, number one, like at first it's just kind of like, okay, like I feel some energy. And then all of a sudden it's just natural. You come in and you have so much more energy. You're not afraid to be yourself. You are fearless. You put yourself out there. And, he actually put a video up about it today. He's active on LinkedIn as well. I'll have to connect you guys. He put out a video, and it's basically the theme of the video is like, hey, 5% of people out there, they're never going to like you no matter what you do, right? They're never going to like you. Stop wasting your time trying to please those people. Focus on the 95% who are going to love you for you, right? They're going to work with you. They're going to hang out with you. They're going to converse with you. And, that's because they like who you are. When you sit there and try to do the robot thing, try to be overly formal, are scared to be your own self, everything else, you're just going to alienate both sides there. You're not going to win over here because you're never going to. And then a good chunk of these people, at the 95%, they're not interested in you anymore because all of a sudden you're just a robot like everybody else. He showed me that 100%. I got the chance to. We covered similar territories. There's some overlaps. We got a chance to travel together a few times as well too. And like those are always so fun because he's one of those guys, as probably a road warrior at times, right? Like you're sitting there in the car, and if you're with someone, man, you always find ways to connect and have some interesting conversations and stuff too. And man, we just always had a blast together up in like Portland, Seattle, some of those areas, and kind of overlapping. And again, seeing that truly the way he was in the office when he's on the phone, it's how he is in front of his clients too, right? And they love the energy. They love the quirkiness. Like it's one of those things that it is just contagious. And seeing someone like live so strongly, according to their convictions and just staying true to themselves when there's so much pressure from everywhere, from society, from the organizations we work for, from our peers around us to act and walk and look and talk a certain way. And man, just like seeing that is just refreshing. And again, gives you the confidence to do that yourself, right? To be yourself, like, within reason. Like, don't just walk up to someone and scream in the face, but like, if it is like, hey man, I like to make jokes. Hey, I like to whistle. Hey, I like to sing. Hey, I'm a little goofy. I'm going to pick up the phone and say something funny. Like, that type of authenticity of like, this is who I am and owning it is just, I think it's a sorely lacking quality in a lot of people today, but it's something that's extremely refreshing when you come across folks that live their life that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you said it really, really well. Just that if you have to try to be authentic, you're sort of missing the point of being authentic. And I think that authenticity is so valuable, but it's been a bit kind of, overused, and it can be difficult sometimes because you're trying to be authentic, but you're trying to be what you think other people want, and make that what your authenticity is. And it is scary to be authentic. It really is. I think
raw.
It's very raw. You're putting yourself out there, and to have somebody who is not only telling you to do that, but also showing you that that's okay by example, I think is huge. And that's something that I think a lot of more formal, you think about the financial advising business, for example. That's where I'm at. It's the suit and tie every single day. And, that's not necessarily me.
Right.
And I think that's okay. Times are changing a little bit, and I think it's good for people to be who they are. Obviously there's a professional way to do that and everything, but
Yeah.
that's cool. I appreciate those qualities in somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. And that idea too, now, especially with social media, right? And from a professional perspective, you see so many people trying to weave this into, hey, I want to use social media to get more business, or I want to get some recognition on social media because I think it'll be good for me professionally, right? It'll help me make money in some way if it's going to help you sell something or brand. And again, people feel a need to fit this certain mold. Like, oh, look how this person does their videos on LinkedIn. I should do them like that. Like my head bob thing, like when I do the videos, like, honestly, I don't even know where that came from. It's kind of one of those things where you're trying out these different things, ways to start videos, and it stuck. And, eventually it's kind of like, Seth's the head bob guy, which is pretty funny. But, part of the reason it gets the attention is because it's not what people expect, right? They a lot of times expect someone to sit there in a video just like this and talk. And it's like, that's not me, man. Kind of like I said, I'm a little bit of a goofball. I'm high energy. Like it's just how it is. And, you see, especially, this isn't picking on anyone individually, but we've got all these LinkedIn experts and trainers, and they're going to teach you how to do video and how to format your profile and blah, blah, blah. And, if you look at some of these people that they're working with or that they say they're working with, and going back to what we said about a sales training, it's like, well, all their profiles look the same. All their posts are formatted the same way. They're using these emojis everywhere and all these things, which, like, if that's you, totally do it. But some of these people, I'm like, you don't use emojis when you just talk to people. Like, you're not like this. You don't say these type of, like, this is just obviously very scripted. And again, it comes back to that unnatural. If you are one of those people that is maybe more dry in your delivery, but you deliver really valuable information, find a way to run with that. Race that strength. Don't try to be someone you're not. But at the same time, if you've got energy and you've got a camera presence, race that strength, right? Don't try to tone your stuff down. And that's, I don't know. It's just, I think there's a lot of pressure today, right? People want to be perceived a certain way. And because we have so much more access, we're so much more connected, there's a lot of ways to do that. And I think it's really, really prevalent. So, the lessons I took from Kyle, like, they'll live with me forever, right? It's just, those are things that I found, like, to me from a principle perspective are really important, right? Like, don't try to change yourself to be accepted by other people, right? Like, what do you actually get from that? It's kind of the core of who I am and what I've seen now. And that's actually a really good transition to the third person I'm going to name here, which is my dad. And that's obviously been lifelong, right? It's just so funny because, again, talking about the parent thing earlier, right? How it's like, all these things that your parents or that people tell you about being a parent, they're like, whatever, like they're cliche. They come out to be true. And I distinctly remember coming back after maybe my freshman year of college and talking to my parents and, being like, well, all these things that you told me growing up that I kind of just like shrugged off and walked out the door, they're all true, right? And it is kind of like that funny thing, and I see right now as a 29-year-old, I see bright and clear the lessons that my parents and especially my dad, was teaching me, right? I didn't see it at the time. It was just like, well, Dad made me come back and, remow the yard because the lines are crooked and I missed a few spots. I was just like, Dad, I just want to go throw the ball around my buddies. Like, what are you doing? Like, man, but now I see it's like, yeah, there's a lesson to be learned there. Like, number one, take some pride in the work you do and do it right the first time. And, it's going to be a lot easier for you. And, again, talking about principle centered, like when I think about my dad in particular, like that's someone that I can see is like lives their principle, right? Like intentionally has written out his principles, has those principles that he lives by, and references them in the decisions he makes and how he chooses to live his life. And again, talking about not bending and changing yourself for the acceptance of other people, like that is it right there, right? I mean, he's I think 57, 58 now. So he's well into his career and like been faced with plenty of those decisions, right? Like, do I compromise what I know, what I think is right, to get this thing done? And the answer for him, at least from my conversations with him, right? Like that's what he always goes back to. What my principles that I hold dear to me, that help me guide my decisions. Like, what do I think is the right thing to do? Right? Not the right thing right now to get this thing I want. What is the right thing to do, even if it's harder? And that's like, I don't know. I think, again, that's lacking today in our society of instant gratification and this over-connectedness and everything almost, because it is like, I want this thing. What do I need to do to get this thing? Rather than, and people fail to see further than a week out, right? It's like, well, what about building goals based on 3 months and 6 months and a year and 10 years down the road? How do we get to those things, right? Because again, talking about principles and what's important to us, like my dad, again, always someone that knew it was important and instilled in me once I was important that it's important to set goals, right? To have, like, to always be reaching for something more, right? It's not good enough just to do the thing. If you're going to do the thing well, or at least have a standard that you adhere to. And if things are important to you, jump in 100%, right? That was such a big thing for me. If something was important to me, he made sure, even if it meant him and my mom sacrificing in some way or another, that I had the opportunity to jump into those things, right? No guarantee I'd be successful at them, obviously, but he gave me the opportunity, and again, seeing that now, I see how important that is. I see how it led to my own development as well, and it's why I pursued things the way I did when I was in high school and younger. It was baseball. It was like, man, I want to do everything I can to be the best ball player I could. And then changed to powerlifting after that. Once I, was done playing baseball, and, I'm still training there, obviously, but even as a professional, it's like, okay, what are my goals? How do I prioritize these? And, what do I need to do to get there? And like, that's something that is just, it's always guided me. But again, every time I have big decisions, or I, have a hard choice or anything like that, I take a step back now, and I do think about like what's important to me. And I think about like, well, like what would dad do? What would dad say? And usually I'll end up calling him too, just to kind of get his take. But it is like, every little kid I feel like grows up, it's like, oh, like, my dad's my hero. Like I look up to him, blah, blah, blah. And like, I totally cliche, but that's 100% me, right? Like I look up to him and I see it now. You don't see it at the time, but I see it now looking back, and even in the conversations we have now, right? I just see the amount of wisdom that is there. And, it's fascinating to look at, right? And to look at how intentional all these things were that I was just so oblivious to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love the way you teed that up at the beginning, because it's like this instant gratification culture, but you have to live in that culture with kind of this playing for the long game mentality. Mm-hmm. Because especially as a dad, and you and I obviously in the throes of being young parents.
Yep.
And in our work and in everything we do, it can be tempting to take the shortcut. Mm-hmm. For the instant gratification, for the easy win. But over time, what happens is you're building on a foundation that's shaky if you're taking those instant wins.
Yep.
If you do the right thing, regardless of if it's in your personal life, at work, wherever, you're building your foundation on something that's actually solid. Yep. And regardless of what happens in the short term, that long term, people are going to look back, and being as close as you are to your dad, you've seen over 29 years The fact that he's consistent day in and day out.
Yep.
And you would know if he wasn't, because you've spent so much time with him. Right.
Yeah,
and like anybody, he probably has his good days, he probably has his bad days, but that consistent mindset is always there. And that's important, because if you've got somebody who's taking the shortcuts and doing the right thing because it's the easy thing and it gets them the easy win, that's going to erode over time. And you're not going to be sitting here 29 years later. Our kids aren't going to be sitting here 29 years later saying, hey, guess what, Seth? Hey, guess what? Ryan was a solid guy, stood on his convictions. He knew what was right, regardless of what the circumstances were. I think that's honestly one of the highest compliments anybody can be paid.
Yeah.
And so kudos to your dad. That is awesome, man. That's so cool to hear that. There needs to be more men like that in society. Today. I think.
I mean, it's I was very blessed and fortunate to grow up in a household with a role model like that. And both my parents are, fantastic. And it is really sad now, obviously. And people don't always grow up in those situations. But I realize now how fortunate I was. And, to your exact point, there needs to be more men like that today, and that's the reality. Is it's on me, that's on you, it's on Miles, like we were talking before, all of us. It's on us to take personal responsibility. And that's going back to what we're talking about, right? That principle centeredness, that playing for the long game, doing the small things right over and over and over again, over 10 years, that really adds up. Right. And man, no, I was very fortunate, and love my dad, awesome dude. And it's awesome now going back too, because we can actually have these conversations where it's not necessarily we can teach each other lessons now, right? We can kind of trade some of those stories and stuff too.
That's got to be so crazy, as it looking forward in my life, to have these little kids that we're now training up in the way we want them to go, but then to have them be teaching us and flipping the script on that. That's going to blow my mind someday. But
I feel you there, man.
So this is a perfect segue then to, let's fast forward. So we've been talking kind of about in 29 years, 30 years, 20 years, whatever.
Yep.
If we were having this conversation in 20 or 30 years, Seth, looking back, what would you want your kids, what would you want those people that you've spent a lot of time with, your wife, your coworkers, what would you want them to say about you, to say, I did it as well as I could, and I am happy and proud of the man who I am and what my legacy, basically. What do you want that to be?
Yeah. Well, in reference to what we were just saying, one of the biggest things, right, is hey, Seth was a principle-centered guy. He didn't deviate for the easy thing. He wasn't just trying to get quick wins. He had his principles. He had what was important to him, and he acted and lived accordingly. That's really, really important, again, because it is so easy today to take the easy route or to get distracted, right? We're bombarded with more information now than any humans in history have been. Yep. And being able to commit to things and see them through. That was another huge one of my dad, right? We didn't quit. You did not quit things. You saw them through, because once you quit once, it's a lot easier to quit down the road, right? And that's, again, something now we're easy path, right? Easy to tell your kid, hey, yeah, you can quit soccer because you don't like it in the middle of the season. And to us, it was you can be done playing soccer, but it's going to be at the end of the season. You made a commitment. You were going to be there, right?
Finish on your commitment. Absolutely.
Yep. And so I think that's a huge thing, right? Being principle-centered, following through on commitments, and knowing that someone is, reliable and their word actually means something. Another big thing to me, I think, is being a provider in different ways, right? Obviously providing for my family, for myself, making sure that we have the resources and the means to live the type of life that we want. And, also a provider to, other folks as well, whether that's friends or coworkers or mentors or mentees, and being able to give something, right? Whether it is something like, hey, we're going to donate money or we're going to donate food, or whether it's giving wisdom or giving opportunities or other things that people may not have been offered otherwise. I do think every single person on this earth has something unique to offer, right? And it's going to come in different shapes and forms. And if we're not actively trying to give in whatever way, we're failing, right? We're living a selfish life. And, I think we've all fallen victim to that at times. Nobody is perfect, but I think being proactive and looking for those opportunities, or even just when those opportunities present themselves, doing our best to take advantage of them and be able to provide in some way. I think that's really, really important. I think two things that maybe go hand in hand. I want to be known as someone that dives in, does the cannonball, no toe dipping, right? If I'm into something, like I'm in, that's been easy to me to this point. But I want to make sure I continue to live my life like that, right? Where it's not, hey, I'm going to take my foot off the gas a little bit, slow down and dabble in these other things, because, it's easy to be a jack of all trades and to dip your toes. But the people that I've seen, that I know personally, and even just the example that we all know, they got really, really good at one thing or two things. And that's how they met their potential, right? It wasn't by dividing their attention between 17 things. It was by going all in on whatever it was. And then from there, maybe they branch out and, they try those other things. But I think that's what people miss right now, is they want to get really good at something, or they want to find a lot of success, but they want to do that to 7 different things instead of just 1 or 2, right? Like we've only got so much bandwidth. We've only got so much time and attention and resources to give. And I think being selective about that and then putting all that energy towards those things is really, really important.
Absolutely. And I mean, our families being one of those important things. And if we divide our attention up too much, that can suffer.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something as well, right? Like I am someone, and again, because it's the example that I had seen for the last 29 years, no matter how much I want to chase my professional success or hobbies or whatever it is, I do my best. And again, I fail sometimes, just like everybody, but I do my best to remember that my family is going to be the most important thing, like worldly thing, right? It's going to be the priority to me no matter what. And it's not always easy to make those choices. If you have to, make a choice between where time is spent or something else, that is a very important thing. And that's the last thing that I have written down here on my note is I want to be known as someone that made a difference in some way, and in the littlest way, right? Even if it's a little way, I know that's one way that I can always make a difference, and a difference that's going to last for a lot longer than I'm going to be on this earth is, making sure that my son right now is loved, and that I'm trying to set him up for success, right? And passing on these principles that I've learned from my dad and my family, and the things that are important to me, letting them be their own person. But again, the thing about principles is you have principles, and, they can be met in a lot of different ways, right? My son doesn't have to execute the principles that I have or that he has in the same way that I do, but it's important that he has the principles that he leans on in one way, right? Because the decisions, the choices he has are going to be different than mine. The interests he has are going to be different than mine. But again, as long as you can always come back to that principle-centered mindset, that's the most important, right? It's the framework. It's not the writing in between the lines.
Absolutely. That's I love that. That's great, man. That's really great. And I think we underestimate, we overestimate how much we can do in a short amount of time. I think we underestimate what we can do in a long period of time, and even generationally. We have that impact on our kids, and I think that's something we need to focus on too, man. Well, hey, in the interest of time, I know you got to go get your son, so I want to let you go here, but thank you so much for being on the podcast. I have learned a ton. I've enjoyed having you on. Where's the best way? I know you've got the hashtag Seth Talks. So tell us a little bit about how we can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a terrible millennial, and that I'm not on social media besides LinkedIn.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Again, kind of one of those things. Where's my time going? I've been on social medias, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at different times, but
that's awesome, man.
I've got to the point where I'm like, it's like, I'll sit there and scroll just like everybody else, and then I'll sit there and realize, like, where's the last 2 hours going? So it's just kind of where I've, over the last few years, it's like little by little, each app's kind of gone away. And, LinkedIn is one that like I said, I've gone all in on, because that's the one that I see actually helps me move towards some of my goals and things. And I really enjoy the platform and the relationships I've made on here, right? This being one of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, look me up on LinkedIn, Seth Thompson, or search the hashtag Seth Talks. You'll find plenty of my content out there. Connect with me. I love connecting with other sales pros out there, like-minded people. And, I'm always happy to chat.
Awesome, man. Well, again, thanks for being on the podcast. This was awesome. I think we'll have you back if you're willing to come back. It'd be great to have you again. So
yeah, absolutely, man. No, I really appreciate it. Happy to be on here, and I appreciate the invite. So we'll talk before too long.
all right, sounds good, man.
Cool. We'll see you.